Good evening, Super League fans. Apologies for the slight delay in getting the show up and running. Had a couple of technical issues as usual. Somehow I'm not really getting into the swing of things properly here for season two with me as chairman. But I am joined tonight by at least one of our planned guests. Stephen, welcome and thank you for joining.
Evening, everyone.
Excellent. If there's any problems with the sound or anything like that, then please give us a shout in the comments. But hopefully it should be fine. Cracking lineup we've got tonight in terms of games. To be honest, I had a bit of an issue choosing which ones to put on first or in which order. Let's have a quick look here. Right, if there's any problems with the stream, please give me a shout because it is telling me that there is a problem with the stream. So whether that's true or not, then I don't know. But feel free to punk me in the comments. Fifey sounds a bit quiet. I'll turn him up a bit then for you. Okay, perfect. Right. Tonight's lineup of matches. What stands out for you of these games?
Dragons Hooligans could be a good game. Obviously, Ardsley Churchtown is likely to be the most entertaining. I think Panathinaikos v Hoddesdon could be again a decent game. But I mean, with squads as good as they are, they should all be good games, really.
There should be something for everyone in all of them. Right. Before we get into tonight's action, as we don't do the midweek shows at the moment, they might return in the not too distant future. Let's let's see. Let's have a look at the last week's results. If we start with
Why you click on that? Sorry, I don't know if you're able to do it, but last time I was on, you had the little chat box on the right hand side, so I could see what everyone else was saying as well.
Let's see.
Didn't know if you were still able to do that.
That might be difficult. That might be a little bit tricky, just because of the resolution. I can't change that, unfortunately. I'll keep you informed if anyone says anything remotely useful, which does occasionally happen, obviously.
Yeah, don't bother saying if anyone flags me off because that'll be half the comments.
Right, they keep complaining that you're a bit quiet. I'll turn you up a little bit more. Is Steve ringing from a call box? A bit quiet, Alf Bridge. We'll see. I've turned. You don't need to shout. I'll just turn you up on the mixer, so that's fine. Anyway, with last week's games, Swindon Devils 0, Bolton Phoenix 1. If we start with that one, from your perspective, late last minute heartbreak for the Devils. You held out quite well, or held your own quite well for a long time against the Phoenix.
Yeah, I think there was a mixture of things happen in that game. As I said in my comments in the blog, excuse me, I thought we were very unfortunate to lose. I thought what we tweaked tactically to contend with what Bolton are good at, it worked for 89 minutes. And I believe, as we saw in the commentary, that their goal came as a result of Seedorf being called offside and then going down the other end from the free kick. Now, quite clearly, Seedorf wouldn't have been offside, and it was just yet another decision against us. But, you know, these things happen, and we dusted ourselves down and we move on to tonight.
Yeah, I can see there's an accusation is maybe a strong word, but there's a comment in the chat from the Bolton Phoenix manager saying park the bus, Swindon Devils. Presumably he wasn't too happy with your defensive setup.
No, so obviously this was an accusation that was thrown around a lot last weekend, to which I addressed in my little video on Monday, where I actually pointed out that I had more players in attacking positions than they did, and it was only park the bus because he couldn't break us down. If they were as good as defending champions should be, they would be breaking us down and scoring. You heard how disrespectful he was about Swindon Devils last week, and then you heard the wild celebrations about that last minute winning goal. They are, as I said in the blog, the worst of the three teams we've played this season and look nothing like defending champions at me.
Yeah, I mean, he was a little bit drunk, to be fair, so that might have something to do with with his celebrations. But yeah, he was definitely delighted to take the point. But it's a good point that you raised, the defending champions against last season's last place team. It should have maybe been it could have maybe been more one-sided. I mean, I don't think even shots on target wise was not particularly one-sided. A lot of offsides though, but that's just happens sometimes in these kind of games in the league. But yeah, I mean, I think you held your own. There's only maybe Ronaldo that didn't really perform too well on the day, and that's perhaps part of the reason why I suspect you've left him out this week. But the rest of the squad did relatively well, I think. Bunch of 8s and 7s. That's not too bad.
Yeah, and this is like for anyone who's been following it. I know people like Alf, for example, would study everything. They would notice that I've played a different tactic in every game so far this season. So you get some people like Alf and Thiago who stick to the same ones. I'm not so sure Alf has this week,
Mm.
but this season so far, I've played a different tactic every week to try and defend the areas I think my opposition are strongest in, and attack where I think their weaknesses might be. And okay, 4 points from 9 isn't the best start, but it's certainly not the worst start, and it's certainly an improvement on where we were last season. And
I mean,
again, going
it's
back, if you look at this game specifically, Bolton were probably 40 something points ahead of us at the end of the season, and they're wildly celebrating a 1-0 win in the 90th minute. It doesn't add up to me.
No, it does seem a little bit. It does seem a little bit. I don't know what the right word is for it, but I mean, he's obviously delighted that they got the points and they got the win. But that rate of a win, a draw, and a defeat in 3 will see you on sort of like 34, 35 points, which is quite close to the playoffs. So if you can tweak that into to having the odd win thrown in there, then the team's definitely in with a shout. But we'll see what happens comes the end of the season. Let's have a quick look at some of the other games. If we start, then if we just go from the top really. So Chudley Cannons were involved in a dramatic 3-4 game with Ardsley Celtic. I think they were 2-0 up at halftime and somehow managed to not win the game. Some comeback from Ardsley Celtic in the second half. We spoke about it at halftime. I think Scott mentioned that as long as they don't score early on in the second half, they were quite good. But that didn't turn out to be the case because they did score early on in the second half.
No, exactly. And that's what's great about having every team full of this amount of talent, is that even at 2 down or 3 down, as we saw in the other game, you can still pull it back if you've got things set just right. But no, this game was just carnage, really, how it ebbed and flowed and different people winning at different times. And, as was a recurring theme in last week's show, so many goals in the last 10 minutes, or in this case, 11 minutes.
Yeah, and we've got another one of these games coming up as we allude to there with a bunch of goals at the end. So Churtley Cannons, maybe I mean he did get a 7 Vestervel. He did save quite a few shots, but it seems as if they've inherited a little bit of the inconsistency rather of the old manager. So it'll be interesting to see how they can turn that around. Current league leaders, Churchtown Massive. How impressed have you been with Churchtown and their start to the season? I know Dragons haven't really been at the races at all, but still convincing a 4-1 victory, and they were cruising after half an hour.
Yeah, well, I mean, I tipped them to win it this year. If it wasn't us, it was going to be them. And they're the only team that have won all 3 games so far. They've taken apart what last season at least was a very resolute Dragon squad, and they've just torn them apart. It's Olusedebi, I think that's how you pronounce it, was my tip to win the Golden Boot if Mpenza didn't get firing, and again he seems to have started well. Yeah, they're looking very dangerous and worryingly good.
And what's next for Dragon Destroyers, do you think? I mean, we can speak about that a little bit later on, but their start to the season has been kind of worrying for the managerial team. I mean, they say that it isn't, and it's a long season, and there's 23 games to go, but they've conceded 4 goals in every game so far. It's not brilliant.
No, but the thing they've got is Jamie's been in this position before and knows how to turn it round. They've got the top scorer in the league. Okay, yes, we're only 3 games in, but when you start badly, as I know all too well myself, you have to try and find the positives and build on that, and you will turn it around. Now, unfortunately for me, last year I wasn't able to do it quite successfully enough, evidently because I finished bottom. But there are occasions, if you go back to the first incarnation of the Super League, where again the first season I finished rock bottom, started the season I think with 4 defeats or maybe even 5 defeats in a row, and lost out on a playoff place in the last game of the season.
Yeah. I mean, a lot of things can happen, and I think, I mean, in season whatever 4 or whatever it was, the last one before I took over, I mean, the Sloths were bottom. It wasn't Swindon, so things can change throughout the season, of course, and we'll see what happens with Dragons this year. Hornets, a relatively convincing 3-0 victory over Ardsley Celtic, who's I mean, it wasn't convincing in the scoreline way, but it was perhaps a little bit down to the keeper, to Pleticosa, who had a terrible day, and to Frey, who had is it Frey? Yeah, it's Frey who had a good day for Hornets. Back to the drawing board for Alf. You mentioned that he might go. You suspecting he might go with a different tactic tonight.
Yeah, and the thing is, Alf, again, likening to Thiago, he gets a lot of criticism when he loses that he sticks to the same formation. But when he's successful, no one really mentions it. So he's in a no-win situation with that. So I think he might change it tonight, but it wouldn't surprise me if within the next 2 to 3 games he goes back to it.
Yeah, I mean, he's definitely had success with it in the past, so you can kind of understand that. And there is also that, I mean, if we look at the top, I mean, Kieran changed it up a little bit, but apart from that, Palmer, at the end of last season, if we look at the teams that went really quite sort of, let's say, to the very end almost, yeah, you've got Palmer and Icos, who were very kind of stable, at least for the second half of the season. Valen United, Bolton, Phoenix, and Churchtown. I mean, they make changes to the tactics, but not like wholesale changes. We're not talking about switching backwards and forwards between wide and not wide and these kind of things. So there may be something to be said for sticking to a formation a little bit. Once you have one that works, obviously, if you stick to one that continues to cause you problems, then perhaps less so.
The other thing is, obviously, with the Hoddesdon team, a lot of people write them off because they're not seen as being they're not the Hoddesdon of yesteryear, if you like. But if you look at that team as a whole, littered around it are some top quality players, even if you don't necessarily think it. I mean, Lucio's a very good centre-back. Frey is a much fancied goalkeeper. Yes, he's still a bit young at this point, but he's still very good. Lawson, again, a very good defender. And for me, probably the most underrated in that team particularly is Eto'o, who everyone who watched the previous incarnation will know. I did a deal, the second season of the old version, where I happily swapped Van Nistelrooy for Eto'o, and every next 3 years after that, Eto'o outscored Van Nistelrooy because I believed that would be the case, and it was proven to be so.
Yeah, I mean, he's definitely got players, and he brought in Joey Good-Johnson as well, and he's obviously brought in Petrov. He's the one who's done, I would say, the most successful sort of like out of league kind of transfers. Maybe up until tonight, we'll see how that pans out. But yeah, it's a strong side, and we'll see how Craig. I think he was a little bit unfortunate not to make the playoffs last year. I think he had that Gammon experiment that kind of killed it for him. But yeah, he's definitely in with a shout, and he's off to not a too bad start to the season. Then we've got Hooligans here. This was another bit of a strange one. I mean, Midlothian were winning quite comfortably until 10 minutes before the end, and then Kennedy and Ronaldinho fired back with 3, and then in the end, Ben Penza had a penalty and actually pulled it back from Midlothian, pulled the win back from Midlothian, a 4-3 victory there, but with tragic goalkeeping performances in that game. How did you see this one? I mean, hugely exciting, obviously, but neither manager could probably really be happy with his side's performance. Obviously, Ian will be happy. I haven't taken the 3 points.
Yeah, and this is the thing, as a league, what we want is entertainment and we want goals. If we have a bit of controversy as well, we're not adverse to that. So for the rest of us, this was a superb game. And for Ian, reluctantly at the end as it may have been, he'd be delighted, I'm sure, to get the 3 points. but they will both be furious with the levels of defending and goalkeeping that their squad's produced.
Mm. I mean, it's good to see that from Ian's perspective that he's got his two strikers working together, and Pence and Vieri. I think he was a little bit worried that with Kesman gone, he might be leaving himself a little bit short, as Comandini's perhaps not quite adequate replacement for either of those guys. But so good for him to see those two guys getting goals, and the same for Hooligans to see Ronaldinho back in the goals, because he's had a quiet period as well. So it'll be interesting to see, especially with Hooligans up against Dragons, I think tonight, and Midlothian up against, is it Sloths? So there should be plenty of options for these goal scoring heroes of this game to show what they're made of again today. But we'll see when that comes up. Two more games to go through quickly before we start with tonight's action. We've got Sloths, who lost at home to Panathinaikos. Perhaps a little bit unlucky, would you say? I mean, Panathinaikos clearly the better side, but Sloths unlucky not to score, I would suggest. I mean, that's 3 games in a row now. I think they're the only team that haven't scored yet. That's not a great start to the season for Rob and the boys.
No, but similar to our result against Bolton, they put in a dogged defensive display. It looked like it might work. They got hit late, but if you were looking at the text commentary, it's not like it didn't appear how the stats show it. There did seem to be quite a bit of white and blue in periods. You could see Panathinaikos were the better team, but you didn't flush you out of it. But 1-0 down, it didn't look like they were going to equalise, which will probably be the most frustrating thing. But I do hope that he is able to turn it around at least for a period, because it can be demoralising losing every single week.
Yeah, I mean, and one thing he has got going for it, they've only conceded 6 goals, which is actually not too bad considering some of the defensive displays we've seen in the league. And I've seen his lineup for tonight, and and it's I think it's solid. Yeah, so we'll see how Sloths go against Midlothian, but he's made a couple of tweaks to that again, and we'll see how it works out. A couple of comments about your connection, whether you're underwater. I don't think, I mean, it kind of changes the quality a little bit. So that's just what Ian and Ryan said. So I don't know if there's anything you can do to address that. I can hear you fine, but it just changes from being like completely clear to a little bit tinny to back to completely clear again and things like that. So, but maybe in the
I think it
bath.
just shows what a great actor I am, Martin, because I've had "Am I in a phone box" and "Am I underwater" so far. So I'm wondering where else it might appear.
Alf asks if you're in the bath. I've seen he had the
I'm
video on in the
in the
beginning,
police
Alf.
with
He's definitely
now.
not in the bath unless he's fully dressed in the bath. I can't rule that out, obviously. We'll soldier on. I can definitely hear you, and I'm sure the guys can as well. Last up, we had the Valen against BTEC. A little bit surprised, maybe. The fancy the Valen side only getting a draw against BTEC. I think they were the maybe slightly the better side, but the credible performance from the Troopers.
Yes, it's kind of as it was suggested in the blog. You describe it as something of a surprise that it was only a draw. But BTEC have, as a lot of people have alluded to, an excellent squad. That they've spent a lot of money compiling that squad,
Mm-hmm.
and getting draws against teams like Valen, Churchtown, Bolton, maybe one or two of the other perceived big clubs is the absolute minimum they should be expecting. If you took this out of the Super League and put it into a more well-known league, if you like, a team like BTEC should perhaps be even beating Valen with the money they've spent and the team they've compiled.
Yeah, there's a fair point around the money not accusation, but the money point that you make there. That if a team with that kind of spending in another league would definitely be very much under scrutiny with their performances if they weren't regularly picking up a bunch of points. I mean, much as I think Chelsea had been under scrutiny for years in the Premier League for really not. I mean, because they were the first ones to take in the millions, obviously the Abramovich millions, and their performances in recent years have perhaps not lived up to the level of investment. So yeah, that's an interesting point. We'll see how it goes tonight. Obviously, BTEC are up. We've got them up first against Bolton, so we can perhaps pop over to the match screen and continue the conversation there. On that topic. Who's at home? Does it matter? BTEC. I have said all the. I'm just checking. Adilson. Yeah. I was just checking that I'd actually saved all of this. Right. Okay. Excellent. Oh, I forgot to. Oh, sorry, Ryan. I forgot. Ryan said, "Can you click us previous meetings between the two teams?" And I said, "Yes, I can." And then I promptly forgot. So never
You
mind.
can still do it.
Oh gosh, yeah, I can, can't I? I just need to.
Just click
Uh,
on a player.
yeah. And then.
No.
Oh,
Hit back.
I'm in Australia. Yeah. Here. Yeah. Oh, is it not here? There you go.
Click next match.
Yeah. Got it. Okay, so there you go. I found it eventually. I found it eventually. So BTEC beat them at home last season 2-1, and of course Bolton then took revenge later on this year. So let's see what happened in this one. So Pizarro got a double, and Veron got a goal tonight. Of course, this was the Bolton Phoenix side with Gary Neville at wing back. So you know, and some Brotta on the bench, or so maybe it's not entirely accurate what's going to happen tonight, but that was what happened last year. So a slight advantage to Bolton Phoenix on goal difference. Let's go back to the starting lineup. So this is BTEC, how they line up tonight. The only change from last week is that they have got Adilson in at AMC instead of Agahawa. You alluded to it already. They've spent a lot of money, and we're still waiting for them really to produce results. What's your prediction for BTEC this season, with the money they've spent? Will they be able to live up to that big spender kind of responsibility, and make the playoffs, or is there still something lacking? I mean, it's difficult to say from a player perspective that there's anything lacking. It's a good squad.
Yeah, the simple answer to your question is no, they won't. And the reason for that is simply, I'm not sure if it's an instructions thing, a mentality thing, but you look at that team, and pound for pound, there's not going to be many, if any, that can put out an 11 as good as that. But their issue, their issue as it was last year, without wishing to sound disrespectful, is that they're just not consistent enough at the top end of the pitch. It wouldn't surprise me if they were the team where fans were chanting couldn't score in a brothel, because they have so many chances that they don't take. I'm actually quite happy Adilson's back in from a BTEC perspective, because when he played last year, he looked quite good.
Mm-hmm.
I think the two up top should be scoring easily 30 goals between them in a domestic campaign, and he should be a good foil for them. I've not seen the Bolton team yet, but if he's playing similar to what he did against me, I think what Ian's done here is very clever. He's playing a lot of people starting in defensive positions, going into attacking positions, and this could be the day that Emerson reminds everyone what he's capable of.
It'll be interesting, definitely. And Ryan is unchanged. So yeah, there's nothing new under the sun for Bolton Phoenix. Yeah, exactly the same formation. He seems to have got Raul working. To be fair, if we're looking at Raul, because he was a disaster. Well, yeah, he was I will say that's a disastrous season for Raul last season. 0.9 dribbles per game, 50% shots on target, 7.1 average. He's gotten off to a completely different start this season. And look at all those 20s. He's obviously a delightful player if he's working. Is that the key for Bolton Phoenix this season, to get the two strikers working? I mean, he wasn't. Of course, he managed to champ Andreas in the final anyway. But in order to make it a little bit better for himself, does he need to be more cynical? Is there anything Bolton need to improve really?
Well, it's a difficult question in the sense of, they are defending champions, so you have to give them that respect of that tag. Now, I am in a unique position, despite it only being week 4, that I've played both of these teams already. From what I saw of them last year and what they've done this year, it's interesting that Figo isn't playing when he did have some very good periods last season.
Mm-hmm.
I also found it quite interesting that they got 41% of the vote, which, as you know, away teams don't always fend so well. BTEC only got 29%. But as I alluded to earlier, they don't look like defending champions to me yet. It might just be that they haven't really kicked into top gear, but I'm looking at this not expecting them to turn BTEC over. Now, I might be wrong. What I do try and do is just, as you flick through it, catch what's happening in the news as well.
Mm-hmm.
And I think West Brown's had quite a bit of positivity thrown his way, whether it was a coach reviewing training or something. I just caught as you were flicking through. So it'd be interesting to see how much of a role he plays in coming weeks, if at all.
Yeah, definitely, definitely. I mean, it looks as if Ian won this game, the reverse fixture last year. It was a bit of a different lineup for Bolton, but Ian has obviously strengthened his squad since, and you could argue that Ryan, perhaps apart from Dacour, is pretty much the same lineup, and Kuhl instead of Alex. I don't know how much of a difference that makes. You could argue Figo could be in there as well. So we'll definitely see. If we're looking at the predictions, Kieran says 3-1 BTEC, Alf says 2-2. And no one else says anything. I'm sure there's been other guesses. For you, you don't expect Bolton to turn BTEC over. So what does that mean? A draw for you or a home win?
To be fair, before you said anything, I was thinking 1-1. If there's a winner, it'll be Bolton, but it'll be by 1 goal.
Right. Well, let's see. Let's see how it goes. Everyone should be on very fast now, so we'll kick this off. It's started off being very much all about BTEC, and then there was a yellow card for Dacour. Halftime or not half. Oh, Claudio Pizarro with the early goal for BTEC there. Taking a nice early lead. Montella pulls one back for Bolton Phoenix. Quite hectic.
There's my 1-1.
Yeah, quite a hectic first half. Backwards and forwards, chances at both ends, and 1-1 so far. Let's see. Well, I say hectic and chances at both ends. I don't know what they were, but they probably weren't really chances. So a very effective finishing for BTEC apparently, 1 shot, 1 goal, and Bolton Phoenix with 3 and 3. What was your impression of that first half?
Yeah, the texts look a lot busier than what the stats suggested. Neither have been, if you look purely at the numbers, particularly impressive. It looks like it is a straight shoot, like a battle in midfield. And it's down to, again, much like it was last week, will Bolton break them down?
Yeah, and I mean, only happened on one occasion, but BTEC obviously took their chances early on. An assist for Sid Roberto, someone who's someone who you've had experience with. I think he got 8 assists for you last season, but perhaps not the average that you were hoping for. Presumably, that's part of the reason why he's at BTEC now. But a decent first half from him. And with regards to Bolton Phoenix, they've had a little bit more going forward, but they've also had some quite bad performances. Dacour is playing badly. The defenders are not doing well, and it's only really Raul who got the assist, and Montella who's living up to expectations. So actually fairly similar to BTEC's performance. You know, one kind of a support player.
The defenders won't.
Yeah. I don't know what happened. Some kind of power thing or network thing. Yeah. I'm also still here. The question is whether we are back. Are we back online? Right. Can anyone in the comments confirm if you can still see and hear? Because we lost signal for a very short time here. Back now. Okay, perfect. Okay, that's good. To be honest, I have no idea what happened there. My screens just went black, and I thought, oh my god, no. But everything came back on again, so that's kind of fine. So yeah, okay, no harm done. Right, let's go for the second half. I kind of lost the plot of what was going on there, but we'll fire up the second half, and then we can do a review at the end. Predictions for the second half. You think BT are going to hold out, or even turn it around in their favor, or Bolton? Is it going to be like Mhm. Mhm. Let's have a look. Let's have a look. We've got BTEC kicking off and create Roberto creating chances early on again. And there's Martin Palermo, first goal of the season for him. So that's a good start for BTEC. Not the best start for the. Sorry. Yeah. No, it cut the screen out for you. Just a second. Oh, you'll rejoin us, Stephen, just in time for an injury to. Did that refresh now for you? Oh, that's unfortunate. Anyway, Sinoni's injured. I am going to kick off the last 10 minutes of the game, and I'll try and fix the co-commentator connection shortly. Yeah. I think I just need to disconnect you and reconnect you again. But just give me we'll do that once the game is over. I'll tell you what's happening. So it's basically BTEC holding on for dear life. Raul having a big chance right at the last minute for Bolton Phoenix, but unable to score. So it finishes BTEC Troopers 2 and Bolton Phoenix 1. BTEC with 2 shots on target. Both of them went in. Bolton Phoenix with 6 shots on target and having only scored 1. So a 5 for Casillas, who really didn't cover himself in glory in this game, and there's a little bit of there's some half decent midfield performances as well, but obviously he won't be too happy with the injury to Sinoni, and he apparently hates his keepers. For BTEC, Gianluigi Buffon is definitely repaying his transfer fee. He got a 9 man of the match award for him, and assists. The second goal for Palermo was unassisted, so there was just the one for Ser Roberto. But a super strong performance from BTEC Troopers here. It's 8 7s and 9s all over the pitch. I mean, he probably won't get anyone, maybe apart from Buffon, in Team of the Week because everyone else is getting 8s. But a very strong. A very strong team performance there. But I'll just try and drop you, Stephen, and get you back on again. So just bear with me a second. Right, I've kicked my co-commentator. So if you bear with me just 1 second, I will just see if I can get him back.
Hello.
Hello. Let's see if we can do this again. Aha.
There it is.
Yeah, you got it. Okay, perfect. Cool. For some reason, it was a screen thing. I won't go into the details here. For some reason, my computer forgot that it had 2 screens connected and tried to do too much on one. But either way, we've gotten over that little technical hitch now. So apologies for anyone watching if we had a bit of a mix up there. So now you can see the stats for the game. So 6 shots for BTEC, only 2 on target, and they got 2 goals. I appreciate you missed the second half, but your reaction to the result?
Yeah, there's not much to say really. From a BTEC perspective, I'm very happy for Ian. Congratulations. I'm very happy to have been proven wrong. This is, as I said at the start, the sort of result your squad should now be getting, and hopefully this will be a benchmark for you. Again, alluding to comments I made before the game, this is why I don't think Bolton look like defending champions. They should be winning that game, and they haven't done. And the same way they were very lucky against us, they were unlucky against BTEC.
Yeah, they definitely need to address that keeper issue, as Ryan points out in the chat. After 4 games, between him, his keepers have saved 1 shot in 4 games, which is a little bit, which is unfortunate. But it also maybe tells him something about the quality of the chances that he's actually allowing the opposition. So they must be like really in the clear when they eventually do get get a shot on target, or maybe there's just some discontent among his group of goalkeepers. He does have a third choice keeper that we haven't seen yet, have we? So maybe that's something for him to consider. Anyway, very effective offside trap. Both teams doing the 12 of those, but a good result for BTEC, and that'll obviously I mean, Ian will be delighted. He obviously had a tough season last year, but a good one, a good win for him. Moving swiftly on. Next up, we have got right. I've opened the wrong one. Sorry, just bear with me a second here. I just need to find the actual fixture list, which I will eventually. Because next up we have the revised fixture list. We have Dragons against Hooligans. Right, so 45 minutes in, and things are going even better than normal. Let's have a look at this before we go on. So similar to the other game, it was 2 away wins last year. So Dragons lost this one to Hooligans, and Hooligan then proceeded to lose at home. Kioti's been man of the match. I think he might still be on the bench, to be honest, for Hooligans. I'm not entirely sure, but a completely different Dragons side, as we will see very, very shortly. Let's have a look at the Dragons lineup here. So Dragons they've changed their tactic. I don't know what you make of this 4-1-3-2. It's like Hoddesdon Hornets have come to town.
It's the go-to champ formation. I'm a little bit surprised, if I'm honest.
Yeah, I don't know. I mean, it clearly didn't work. The formation that they tried to bring in the first 3 games. I mean, maybe maybe they're playing the long game with some of the signings that they've made as well. But conceding 4 goals in each of the first 3 games obviously have made them take some kind of drastic action here. How do you think this formation suits the lineup? I mean, you've got Ryan Giggs in a central midfielder role, perhaps a little bit unusual.
I think Giggs is capable of playing there, to be fair. What is interesting, unless I'm slightly mistaken here, obviously Tomazi is a defensive midfielder. Davies, I believe, is probably a defensive midfielder. You've got Kaladze in there as well. So they're still looking very defensive. I don't know if they just don't have the midfield options that Boise and Jamie want or need. But it's considering what everyone knows that formation is capable of, they don't look like they've got the right personnel necessarily to pull it off as effectively. I mean, again, as you've alluded to, they've got the worst defence in the league after 3 games. Which needed addressing. Has this addressed it? I'm loath to say yes, if I'm honest. What clearly was happening, they'll claim it's not, but what clearly was is Boise's impact of the showman all-out attack was there, but Jamie needed to rein that in because what made him successful for a point last year was the fact that they were so good defensively. The reason they didn't finish low down the league is because they were so much better defensively than the teams down there.
And Mark Viduka
they're not doing that this year, so he needs to rein that in.
Yeah, and Mark Viduka being the main reason they didn't finish higher, because they drew a lot of games they should have won if he'd actually bothered scoring any goals. But we'll see we'll see how it pans out for the Dragons tonight with that formation. Hooligans they are not unchanged because C. Elias has picked up an injury, and so Mendieta is playing instead of him. We've still got Close in goal, Brett Emerton, who was recommended by many as who should be a regular starter. He's not exactly hit the ground running with a 7 and a 5 so far this season, but I mean, yet to with chances for improvement. But a bit of an erratic start to the season for Hooligans. Do you think they've? I mean, the squad is strong. Obviously, I mean, up front is maybe a little bit now that Ronaldo's gone, but how do you see Hooligans season going? Is it going to be the same as we saw last season? And this season, it's win 1, draw 1, lose 2, win 2, draw 1, lose 2, kind of up and down, no real consistency. And is that going to be the situation that they're going to find themselves in? Do you think?
It's exactly for that reason that they're such a tough team to judge. I mean, I think defensively on paper, they look a much better team than they were last year. But up front, that won't scare anybody. Ronaldinho will, and it was nice to see him score last week. And obviously Kennedy has probably been the most informed player going back to the end of last season for time.
Mm-hmm.
But that front two is probably what's going to cost him a playoff place.
Mm. Yeah, well, we'll see if they can fire out some shots against the Dragons. I mean, they have a habit of conceding 4, so we'll see if Hooligans can live up to that. Any predictions? I think did I miss your prediction? You're usually early with yours. No, I don't think I did see one. Stephen, I'll ask you in the meantime then. Difficult to predict this one with Dragons and their new tactic and Hooligans being as unpredictable as they are. First points for Dragons tonight.
Well, in the pre-match vote, Dragons got 16% and Hooligans got 63%. So a lot of people are obviously fancying them. But you're right, that tactical change could well make the difference. I'm going to say Dragons Nicholas 1-0.
So you're on board with Ian on this one. There's a couple of draws and Alf's in and an away win. So let's kick it off and see how the first half pans out between these two. I think it's fair to say struggling early on both sides. No goals from Brosek yet, obviously. Oh, there's Marcelo Salas with the first goal of the season. For him, for Hooligans, they take the lead after just 15 minutes. Both sides look as if, I mean, I said that about the previous games. Oh, there's Simon Davies with his first goal for Dragon Destroyers. So they fight straight back. Doesn't look as if they're going to concede 4, but things could obviously change. Both sides creating chances.
Ronaldinho's name a fair bit.
Pardon?
Just saying, I'm seeing Ronaldinho's name a fair bit. So they're clearly getting the ball in attacking areas.
Mm-hmm. But just failing to capitalize on it. Let's see how it looked fairly even, but looks can be deceiving. No, it was actually fairly even, so perhaps quite fair with 1-1 so far. Let's see player stats. I mean, Kalatz is happy because he's playing in that he's playing in a role that he likes. He's in that DMC role, so he's doing quite well. Everyone is kind of picking up sevens. Carini and Michael Lamy, who I have no idea who this person is, but he's apparently doing quite well at right back. No assist on the goal, so yeah, I mean it's okay. It's a lot better than what they normally do, but a fairly decent start for Dragons. Brosek not scored yet, but he is also playing up front. I think in the previous games he's been playing behind the strikers maybe. If we have a look at Hooligans, anything that that stands out for you? I mean, not a lot of touches down in the defensive area, so they're perhaps maybe a little bit disappointed to have conceded. So Campbell already on a yellow, and Kennedy getting an assist now that he's not scoring.
I'm just sort of looking through a couple of stats here, and two of the players we picked out beforehand in Emerton and Ronaldinho are clearly key figures for them because they're making a lot of the passes. So they're trying to play through the middle. Unfortunately for them, obviously, with this tactical change, Dragons have a lot of players in there, which is why the likes of Clancy will be playing so well because he's clearly picking them off.
Mm-hmm.
I think he needs the likes of Mendieta to up his impact on the game.
Yeah, the defensive midfielders need to do a little bit better there. Mendieta being one of them, definitely, and Brett Emerton the other one. I mean, he's getting a lot of passes, but none of them key. So it's obviously down in the other half of the pitch. Not a lot of key passes for Dragons either. So a bit of a low quality one maybe so far in the first half. But let's see in the second half if either team can find the winner. At least there's been chances and half decent goalkeeping performances, which we haven't seen much of late. So that's positive, I guess. Let's kick this one off and see how the second half pans out for these two sides.
I can't remember who else he has in the squad, or obviously what his instructions are. But it surprises me that Defoe doesn't start for Hooligans.
Oof.
To be fair, when we're talking about their front two.
Yeah, I mean what you call him, Roque Santa Cruz has just made a good point for him being a starter because he's just scored, but unfortunately, in the process, they also picked up an injury for Sunday Olise, for Taribo West, but he has got Olise on the bench, so he comes in for that in that position. Dragons have had the most of the chances in the second half so far, but it's Hooligans who's taken the lead. We'll see if Dragons can find a way back into this one. They did equalize in the first half. Perhaps they can do it again in the second. But yeah, oh no, Robbie Keane had a goal ruled out for offside there. I mean, that's a name we haven't seen for a while as well, Robbie Keane. I don't know what happened to him at the end of last season, but he seemed to die down completely, his contributions.
Yeah, that was something I was meaning to say beforehand, is where Brozek's scoring, Keane isn't, and that's why Dragons will struggle to get higher than they were. They need them both at it.
And they do it again. Dragons do it again. The Dragons defense and the Dragons goalkeeper. Yeah, that's another 4. That's 16 goals conceded in the first 4 games. I mean, again, they're the same number of shots on target. Your thoughts on that?
Efficient striking or efficient attacking Hooligans, something we know they're capable of, and just a complete capitulation on the Dragons' part. I can't understand how any team. I don't even think we conceded 16 in the first 4 last year. That's how bad that is.
Yeah, I mean, I think the only thing that equals it was I think Chotley had a run in the middle of the season where they conceded like 22 and 5 or something like that, which was marginally worse than this, but only marginally. Let's have a look at the performance of the Dragons players. They don't even score that lowly, to be honest. I mean, Giggs obviously doesn't belong in that position. Tomasi neither, with a forward arrow on him. But
we said the same last year though with the formation Jamie was playing. He had Keane in sort of an attacking midfield role, and we all said if he had attacking midfielders, he would have a really good squad. And again, I'm not familiar with the full 24 he's got. I can't remember him making a lot of additions in that area.
I mean, it's a mystery to me why, if you want to get more creative, have more goals, play Brozek and Robbie Keane in AMC, in the 2 AMC roles. I mean, Brozek, look at his stats. Play him at AMC. Don't play him up. Well, you can play him up front, obviously, but I mean, I don't know. I'm not a manager, and when I was a manager, I was appalling at it. So I don't know. I just don't see the formation. I don't see where he's going with this, to be completely honest. But we'll see what they come up with next week. Of course, this one it's definitely back to the drawing board. They'll be dancing.
So I was just going to say, the thing I would say about this is, and I know it's a little bit self-indulgent on my part, but when Jamie was on, did such a really good job on the opening night of this season. He slated I did tactically to win a game. Now, he has now conceded 16 in 4 games and is not addressing that problem. He's clearly tried to with a change of formation, but he's not addressing it enough when you consider how good they were at defending last year. He failed to address his midfielder problem, and you just wonder what is going on there. Are they just looking at names and not what is actually needed?
Yeah, I mean, to be honest, it's difficult for me to as I mentioned, to say, but I think you make fair points there. I mean, they've had stronger formations and stronger lineups with the same players. So I'm not entirely sure, but we'll see what Jamie comes up with for next week. Hooligans will be, I mean, Thiago will be delighted with this performance from his team. There's 8s and 7s all over the pitch at the back. He's got a goalkeeper getting a 9, and then most importantly, he's got a Salas and Roque Santa Cruz and Ronaldinho, so he doesn't have to rely on Kennedy, who does get an assist. Mendieta comes in and he does get an assist, but it's really his front 3, which is what he should have been relying on. Or, I mean, I'm not saying that he has done anything wrong, but they're the ones he should have been able to rely on, his front 3, with Elba, with Ronaldo, with Salas, with Santa Cruz, with Defoe, with whoever the last guy is whose name I forgot. I'm sure he had one more guy up front that he could rely on for that. And they get 4 goals and an assist between them tonight, those 3 guys. So that'll be something for him to celebrate. A shame that Taribo West gets an injury. I think he's only on 51 fitness, so it's probably not too bad. But Sunday Olise, who's obviously come in, is a solid replacement in that back 3. Anything that stands out to you in the Hooligan side, apart from Brett Emerton's ridiculous number of passes and Walter Samuel's 20 tackles?
But this is it. He's now playing. I know a lot's been made about sticking to that formation, but Ronaldinho is now doing the job we know he's capable of doing in that position. Brett Emerton has done the job we know we're capable of. I'm looking at that team and thinking they should be beating Dragons 4-1 because they are clearly better than Dragons. Where we were alluding to, or I was alluding to, where teams are strong and where they're not. This is a very good 11. You might question the goalkeeper, okay, and I said about the front too, but that midfield and defence is very, very good, and they're playing in their right positions. I mean, when I had Emerton in the original one, I played him more as a wing back, admittedly, but he is a defensive midfield right centre, and he's done that job very well against a poor Dragon team. But this is where I think Hooligans could do well, and if he can keep those strikers scoring, which I worry that he won't, this is why I said they would be dark horses.
Yeah, and bear in mind that from a midfield perspective, if he gets tired of these guys, he's got Deco on the bench, he's got David Beckham, Deco, and one more ridiculously good player on the bench, I think, who's not even on the bench as Deco. I think he's got another kind of superstar out there. So yeah, it'll be interesting to follow Hooligans this season, definitely, and see how far they can go with this squad. But if they get Marcelo Salas, who definitely can score a lot of goals, he already had 2 assists coming into this, and Roque Santa Cruz, if he gets firing as well, then it's a dangerous team, because they do have Ronaldinho, and I think he suffered from having the 2 people in front of him doing so badly last season. If they do better, Ronaldinho will be pretty dangerous as well. So yeah, it was an interesting game. A shame for Dragons that they after a decent first half performance then capitulated in the second, and that's obviously looking quite bad for their goal difference now with with 16 conceded in 4. Next up, we do have a.
So I was just going to say, the thing to watch with Hooligans, forget last week, because that was just mental what happened in last week's game, but it's quite comparable the first 2 seasons now. I think they got absolutely hammered in the first game of last year and went about 7 games unbeaten. They got absolutely hammered in the first game of this year and have now, I think, won 2 out of the next 3.
Yeah, so I mean,
they clearly are slow starters. It's just whether he can maintain a push once he gets a run going.
Yeah, well, he definitely need to not have. I think at one point, I think he had 7 players injured at some point in last season. If he can stay away from those injuries, he was obviously without Sol Campbell the whole season. Then obviously he's got he's in with a shot. For the next game, we've got Valen United at home to Chudley Cannons. That was a that was a 5-2 last season, towards the end of last season, so fairly recent. And I think, with one exception, I think that's exactly the same lineup that Valen has. Obviously, Olise is gone, Rui Costa's gone, but I think apart from that, it's very similar. So let's have a look at this one. This will be interesting as well. Chudley have an interesting formation. We'll get to that in a second. Valen, we've already spoken at length about Valen, or I have, and our guests have, about how they are a very strong side. Last week we spoke a little bit about why Saha was starting instead of Saviola, and this week he isn't. He's swapping Lizarazu with Sorin, which is his normal kind of thing that he does. And yeah, I mean, they had a tough 1-1 draw with BTEC last week, but this is his probably his strongest 11. And yeah, on paper, Chudley've not had the best defense, so this could be a difficult one for them. Any weaknesses for you in the Valen team? Nakata and Fiora are sometimes mentioned as potential weaknesses.
It's hard to say that there's weaknesses when you think of how good they were. Even in the final last year, they were the better team. They just couldn't get the job done. Shevchenko started the season well. He was hit and miss a bit last year. Cafu is doing what Cafu does. I really like the 2 centre-backs. You're right, this one is going to be interesting, because what you've got is a clash of styles. You've got the Cannons, who have had 17 goals in their 3 games between scored and conceded. And then you've got Valen, who have only conceded 1 all season, I think. So you've got a team where there's lots of goals against a team where there's not a lot of goals. So interesting to see which way this one goes.
Yeah, and interesting to see, especially when you see Chudley's lineup, because they are gone. They've gone different. They've dropped the wingers. They've gone narrow against Valen, which means that Didier Agat plays at kind of almost at like at right center back ish, and
Oh,
we've got Baumer in
hang on.
central midfield.
I can see what he's done here, and it's perfectly fine in terms of a shape to a point. Because I can see that he knows Valen play narrow, so he's trying to combat that. But when you think of a lot of the comments outside of the match day, particularly about the way the graphic for Team of the Week is done, and then a gaff is playing right centre back, I'm not taking any more criticism about what a Team of the Week graphic looks like.
No, but that was me who criticized it. I don't think Scott did. Well, maybe he did. I don't know. Either way, I will also criticize this. I don't think Agat should be playing there, but we'll see how it pans out. I think he's trying to avoid that block of those three DMCs. He's trying to not line up attacking midfielders directly opposite Keane and Cafu and Lizarazu, so he's putting them a little bit further back, and they're obviously very attacking players. Baumaker and Gallardo, they are attacking players, so it'll be interesting. Harasimovic, I mean, personally, I would probably swap them around and put Echeverria on the right-hand side, but that's personal preference. Harasimovic is obviously someone that both Palmer and Scott rate, so he's getting a game tonight. But it'll definitely be interesting. It'll definitely be interesting how to see how this one pans out. Ian Edwards predicts Cafu man of the match. Alf says 4-4-2. Your predictions, Stephen, for a result in this one?
Well, before I make a prediction, the one thing I'm slightly upset about from a Cannon's perspective is they've probably got the best mix of available wingers available and have chosen this game to play with no wingers against a team that only play in the middle of the park. I'm going to say Valen will win 3-2.
A close one. I mean, it'll be interesting. We'll kick it off and we'll see who's right. Alf says 4-2, so you're in line for that. Could Harasimovic be trouble for Lasisi, and how physically strong is Lasisi? He is 19 strong, so I guess that he's going to be okay. But we'll
That's
see.
impressive.
We'll see. We'll kick this one off. Ryan says 3-0. Early yellow card for someone. I missed who that was. Saviola
I
with a
think it was.
goal. Was it Keane that got an early yellow?
I think so.
Well, Saviola's having none of it after being benched last week.
This is horribly wrong already. Although he has had a comeback already this season, so let's not write him off yet.
Yeah, that's true. That is true. There has been a comeback. That wasn't against Valen though.
No, this is true. I'm just trying to stay positive.
I mean, and that's fair enough, and that is fair enough. I mean, it kind of puts into perspective how much of a decent performance that was from BTEC last week, because Valen were completely dominant in the first two away games. Then they had that game with BTEC and this one. I mean, as you mentioned, they're not normally a team that score many goals because they're not involved in high scoring games usually, because they're not creating like a trillion chances. They're just creating very good ones and putting them away. In this case, they've got 6 shots on goal, 5 on target, and they've scored 3. And Totti is the only one who's not really been that involved. Everyone else has been doing very well, very clinical. Fiore, Nakata, and Saviola with assists. Saviola with 2 goals and Shevchenko with 1. Lasisi doesn't seem to have had any problems handling Harasimovic so far. So yeah, a fairly standard first half performance from Val and what we've come to expect from them. If we look at Chudley, that's not gone. That's not gone.
That is.
That's not gone that well. I mean, you got to try something away against Valen, I guess, but this was perhaps not it. Didier Agat not doing particularly well. Liverani, who's playing in his preferred position, not doing very well, and everyone else getting 6s.
And again, I personally think, and it's difficult, I know, because he is playing Valen, who are so very good and so well drilled at what they do. But this would be, for me, an opportunity to say to the likes of Balmer, say to the likes of Echeverria, stay wide. Let the likes of Van Bommel the room to do what it is he does, and Liverani the room to do what he does. Get the ball out to them guys, off you go. Because there isn't that width in Valen. If you can try and do something, in my opinion, and when it comes to me playing them, I'll probably get destroyed 7-0 trying to do something like that. But I agree. Try and do something. When you have wingers with the capabilities Chudley have, to not utilise their strengths, I think is criminal.
Yeah, I mean it's like you mentioned yourself. We've seen teams go wide against Valen and fail miserably, and we've seen teams go narrow against them and fail miserably. Occasionally, you do see them losing a game or having a difficult one. I mean, BTEC did a decent job last week to keep it at 1-1. Well,
The gap getting 5 away.
yeah, that's it. I mean, we'll kick off the second half. I don't think there's much to dwell on from a first half perspective. It's been Valen all along. It's difficult to see how this one can be turned around, but you never know. A goal, oh well, no. I was going to say an early goal like they conceded last week. Maybe they could do something from that, but that was Valen who got the early goal in the second half, and that obviously kind of sealed the fate, I think, of Chudley Cannons.
It almost looks like Valen have taken their foot off the gas now.
Oh yeah, well they did a little bit because Harasimovic got a late consolation goal on 88 minutes there. So yeah, better half. I mean, they drew the second half. If you want to look at positives, I mean, they even created more in the second half. But
I would have said last year.
they drew the second half. Is that being too rose tinted about it? Okay, so I don't think we'll be seeing this formation again anytime soon. Mark Kerr didn't like it. Agat didn't like it. Liverani did not like it at all. So Bauma did quite well in that midfield role, much better than Giggs did in a similar role in the Dragons game, and he got the assist obviously for Harasimovic. I mean, are we going to talk about taking positives?
I don't think, okay, like you said, drew the second half, a couple of people up their ratings to 7. There's not much else to say, really.
Yeah, I mean, Bauma did pretty well. Got an 8 and an assist, and Harasimovic, who I was a little bit in two minds about whether it was a good idea to play him. He is very strong. He's fast, and he scored. So why not? Shame to see Rossini. He's had quite a lot of assists in the first few games, but he didn't. He wasn't in with any kind of a chance tonight. Second half of Allen, Saviola scoring another one. 10 and 3 goals. I suspect we'll see him in Team of the Week, perhaps at left midfield, but he'll be in there somewhere, I'm sure. Apart from that, standard Valen home performance, I guess. 8s across the board. Totti with a 7 and Saviola with a 10. Not really that much.
The thing is, that frightening thing is that Totti gets his place in the team because of how much Andreas loves him as a player. And he is probably consistently their lowest scoring player.
Yeah, and that's the kind of problem. I mean, I appreciate that I can hear my own voice, and I do go on about Valen a little bit now. But as you quite rightly pointed out, Totti's probably the worst player last season. He had 24 games, 9 goals and 4 assists, and 729 average, and he was probably by some distance their worst player. That's a little bit.
Could you imagine if they had just trying to think of the ones that really do the job. Could you imagine if they had like Kennedy or Albino, other players who've done well in that position in the Super League, a Robbie Keane of last year? Could you imagine how good they'd be there?
Or if Totti played the way he can play, I have no idea why he's not playing better in this side. I have no idea because he's a very good AMC in the game. I mean, there's nothing wrong with playing him in that position. So, but I don't know. But either way, convincing win for Valen. They'll go on to next week, and shortly, hopefully for them, we'll find a slightly more successful formation. Next up, we've got Panathinaikos against the Hornets. So let's have a look at Panathinaikos here, and let's have a look at Hornets. And first up, we've got.
What a great start Mac has made at Palmer since he took over.
Yeah, he's come in. He's had fresh ideas. It's not going too badly for him at all. I think 2 wins, hasn't he, so far? So yeah, he's
2 wins defeat in all 3 games.
What was that? Sorry.
I think it's 2 wins and a defeat, but they had more attempts on goal in 3 games and more possession.
Yeah. They've definitely gotten off to a decent start, which is impressive considering that he's changed up the tactics and everything as well. I mean, I am a little bit upset that he's dropped Ebisand for this game, but I guess difficult decisions have to be made occasionally, and he's obviously looking for a win tonight with he calls it a 2-7-1 formation. I'm not entirely sure. I mean, I guess there are 7 midfielders if you're being like super like I don't know picky about it, but we see Nedved in an AMC role, Cole there as well. That could be interesting. Jagatas and Salihamidzic, which are his best wingers out there on the sides. Riquelme, maybe not his best MC. Maybe I don't know. Maybe he'll be fine. I don't know. He played really well in the first game. I think both Riquelme and Cole. Um, it's a strong side, Panathinaikos. We went from talking about Panathinaikos having like kind of like a bit of an underrated squad and maybe being a bit, Parma doing really well to get them into the top six. But looking at the squad now, that's not far off a top six squad, is it?
No, it's one of them where you look at it and that 11 is a strong 11. You would suggest that most teams have somebody better in some positions, but as a collective, that is a very strong squad, and they will challenge for top six definitely. I really like the two at the back. Those two centre halves together will be very difficult to break down. I just worry in that perspective, are too many players sort of racing forward?
Yeah, I mean they're obviously trying to score goals. It's a lot more attacking than the Parma's one at the rear. I would suggest. I mean I know we say that one at the rear. Oh, it's going to be dangerous and all that, but he did have five DMCs in front of it, so Cannavaro was fairly well protected.
Vasilyuk's on the bench. Sand's been dropped. Does he have a fourth striker? Because I'm just interested in the reason Trezeguet
He's got
is
Terry
the
Henry
main
as well,
man
hasn't he?
compared to Rocha.
He got Terry Henry as well, didn't he? From Bolton.
Oh, of course, yeah.
So yeah, he's got plenty.
It,
He's
it,
got the.
it just kind of a little bit that Trezeguet's his choice to be the main man. That's all.
Yeah, well, we'll see how it works out. Craig, after his 3-0 win against Astor, is unchanged. So Craig has abandoned his champ manager route when it comes to tactics and is going with. I mean, it's similar to the BTEC formation, isn't it? Similar to what Ryan played at some points last year. Um, I mean, they did well. We already covered them. They are a little bit sort of like flying under the radar with the signings that they've made, with the players that they've got. But again, the only thing that people really could question now is maybe Batistuta. Should he still be playing? He's 33, but his stats are still pretty immense. But I think he was so poor in the second half of last season that he's just kind of managers just lost faith in him. And Sigalko's obviously scored 2 in his first 3, so that's not too bad either. Eto'o, I think, with 2 and 3 as well.
It's, it's a good position to be in. That is the main concern of the outsiders. Are you playing the wrong quality striker? You say this again, and going back to what I was saying earlier about ratings, this is where it's dangerous writing Batistuta off for having a poor second half. It needs to be remembered that Hoddesdon had a poor second half of the season. So if the team are playing badly, Batistuta isn't going to be scoring goals. But again, as alluded to at the start, I'm a big fan of Eto'o, and I think he will be doing bits for most of this season.
Yeah, I just had a quick look at Felipe. I think it was Neil who asked in the comments where he's from. I think he starts at Vasco. Went to Vitoria, had a kind of ish season there, and then Hornets picked him up because they needed a cover on the left hand side. I think Babayaro is still injured. He's their normal first choice out there. I think they do. Do they have Neil Clement as well? I think he did quite well, but I think obviously as a wing back there, they're looking for something a little bit different. Let's see if there's anyone who's been in with a prediction here. 3-0. Oh, that was for the last game. I've not seen any predictions yet here, but I'll ask you instead, Stephen. For me, it's going to be a close one. This one.
Yeah, in the pre-match vote, Panathinaikos got 60% and Hoddesdon just 13. This is one of them that could literally go either way. Just because they're at home, I'll say Panathinaikos, but I think it will be both teams to score.
Chris thinks he's going to lose. Ryan thinks he's going to win. Alf says 1-1. Ian says away win. So there's a mixed bag in the comments as well. But we'll kick it off and we'll see who gets off to the better start. If we're talking about winning halves now. So it looks like a good start for Hoddesdon, creating a bunch of chances early on. David Dunn, but Panathinaikos firing straight back.
This is like a boxing match. This one.
Yeah. It's backwards and forwards. Yellow cards flying around now as well. We've seen a lot less red cards this season compared to what we saw last season, I think.
I've seen Matthew Breeze's name before, but I don't think we've seen Mr. Oldham or Mr. Dade yet.
No, I think we've had one game refereed by someone that was well known as a strict referee, but we'll see how that develops. So it develops over the season. There was a lot of flashing text, but it wasn't not a classic first half. Two and three shots, one on target for each. I mean, you were right about the back two, but the rest of them they don't seem to have turned up yet.
When I said a boxing match, obviously I meant a sparring training session.
Yeah, there's not been a.
I think the reason for those stats is the sheer volume of people in that midfield. I mean, I know I've kind of gone away with it this year, but traditionally, no matter what formation I played, it would always have two people up front. And I know I've played none up and one up front this year already.
Yeah.
But the fact that they're both playing one up front is probably affecting the amount of shots they're able to get, because with that many bodies, it's just looking for a through ball or a ball over the top, and the options aren't there.
Yeah, a little bit crowded, and if we look at Hornets, it'll probably be more of the same. I mean, they've got Sean Davies, who's doing quite well. I mean, obviously he's had a good start to the season. But apart from that, as you mentioned, it's mainly along the midfield that people have been involved, and then Tsigalko and Eto'o have not really had much in the way of service. Tsigalko with a couple of shots, but nothing from Eto'o yet. So it'll be interesting to see how both teams can maybe turn that into proper boxing instead of sparring in the second half. Not a lot of offsides. Maybe neither of them play offside trap, or maybe the strikers are just better at avoiding it. What do you see as the key in the second half? Winning that midfield battle in any player? Do you think Eto'o or Joe Cole, or who's going to be the one that turns it around for you?
I'm going to say the performances of Nedved and Eto'o are going to decide which team wins this.
Well, we'll see. We'll kick off the second half and see if you are right with your prediction. And Neil says that Tsigalko has the most attempted passes for his team. I've never seen that before, and that is indeed correct. So he does get the ball. He just doesn't do much with it. Let's have a look and see how it goes. Sanyol played it up there. Tsigalko sends it wide. Trezeguet doesn't score. I mean, the strikers are getting the ball. It's just what they do with it that doesn't seem to impress anyone. Have we had a 0-0 so far this season? We might have. I'm not sure. Oof.
Sure.
That was Riquelme. Riquelme breaks the deadlock. Excellent strike from him for Panathinaikos to put them 1-0 up. Hoddesdon trying to come back into it, but Salihamidzic hits him on the counter. 2-0 for Panathinaikos. And that's how it finishes.
That's a good result, that.
Yeah, I mean, good result for Panathinaikos. That's the third win in 4, which obviously puts them ahead of rivals Bolton. Better second half performance from them. Trezeguet getting an assist. Cannavaro ultra solid at the back. Patrick Pauve being strong there in midfield as well, and Riquelme getting perhaps surprisingly getting a goal. I didn't see that coming from him. Let's see if it was a free kick or something like that. Yeah, it was a free kick direct free kick from Riquelme, and then Trezeguet knocking the ball down for Salihamidzic. So decent from Panathinaikos. You mentioned Nedved as I mean he did okay, I guess, but I guess it could have been anyone in that second half. A bit of a free kick magic from Riquelme never goes amiss, does it? And Trezeguet, has he done enough to be reselected? We spoke about the strikers before the match.
I think looking at that, it depends if that's the intended way to play. It looks like Trezeguet is basically playing the man up top that's going to hold it up and lay it off to the midfielders making the runs.
Yeah, I mean,
it's not like he's going to be the man looking at that and judging on this performance. He's not looking at him to go and get 20, 25 goals. He's looking at the quality of players around him and just saying, look, all you've got to do is use your strength and lay it off.
Yeah, three key passes for Joe Cole as well. So good to see him getting some game time after his nightmare season at Ardsley. Let's have a look at Hoddesdon and see if we can spot where it went wrong. Tsigalco again, the one with the most attempted passes, but failing to. I'm not sure why he's passing. Why doesn't he just shoot? I mean, he didn't shoot very well, but yeah, I mean that's a little bit
It'd be
disappointing.
exactly the debate to have Batistuta up there with him. Clearly, he wants to pass the ball, but there's no one up there to pass it to, so he's playing it back all the time.
Yeah, I mean that's not great. I think maybe you could expect a slightly better return from him because it's not as if anyone else has played. I mean David Dunn, but you know what I mean, David Dunn. It's not as if anyone has played
Don't knock
particularly
David
poorly.
Dunn.
Sorry?
David Dunn's a player.
Yeah. He's a player, but you know what I mean. An attacking midfielder that has 2 goals and 3 assists and a 730 average. He's worse than bloody Totti on AMC. Yeah, it's not going to get you anywhere. That was kind of my only point there. That
Did
they need to do better. Yeah.
you ever
Um,
see the clip David Dunn? I think was it for Birmingham? I think where he tried some really silky pass and just completely stepped it and fell over.
Oh, he tries like a Rabona or something like that or whatever and
That's it.
completely, yeah, fucks it up. Yeah. And Neil agrees. David Dunn is definitely worse than Totti. I completely agree. Couldn't agree more. Anyway,
In
solid win for
that
Panathinaikos.
pot.
Sorry.
I'm not putting that up as a daily question. Would you choose Totti or David Dunn?
No. I think that will perhaps be one-sided. Although you never know. You never know. Anyway, solid win for Panathinaikos. But not entirely back to drawing board for Hoddesdon. I think it's just a little bit of finishing that didn't really go their way in this one. They weren't like outplayed or anything. Um, 5 shots to 7 if you're away from home is no disaster. It's just the fact that they haven't had any more on target. They could have perhaps had a draw in this one. So not too bad there. Next up, we do have our friends Ardsley Celtic. Let's have a quick look where we are. There we go. So next up, we've got Ardsley Celtic against Churchtown Massive, and this
Game
one
this could be.
this one's going to be interesting.
This,
As you can see there, there's a
this
new
was the one I.
there's going to be goals in this one, and there's a new squad number being assigned for a player at Churchtown. We'll get back to him. RC Celtic, what do you make of so Hottie sticking with his 2-4-1-3? What do you make of that? Is it I mean he clearly just wants to score goals, entertain, and get some good results, and he does have the players, doesn't he? I mean, it looks okay on so far.
It's brave against this particular opposition, but
True.
again, when you look at it, and I know there was debate about how good Saeed is. I don't think there is really any need for a debate. I think he's a better player than the punditry team that you had last week are suggesting. He's obviously not Vieira, but he's not awful. And when you look at that attacking full, I mean, Tomadira obviously was with us last year. I think as deals go, Madira's done well. I think he's right up the top of the assist charts.
Hmm.
And Stadolf, who we'll come to in our game, has done equally well for us. So yeah, that front three. Obviously, Tristan did well last year, so it's a shame not to see him involved. But you can't argue with a player that came off the bench last week to win the game.
Yeah, I think Rakoba, I don't think he has the best stats, but he came off as a sub and scored 2 goals, so difficult to drop him. Nikiforenko has done okay in that AMC role, not been that fantastic, but he's obviously scored a bunch of goals, so that's he's got that going for him. And it's just up to whether Christian Chivu and John Terry can kind of keep it a little bit kind of contained at the back. So normally they've kind of done it, I guess, to some extent, but it's going to be a little bit tricky up against the current league leaders and 100% record holders so far, Churchtown. As we alluded to earlier, there's a late summer arrival for Churchtown. We've got Everton, I guess. I'm not sure how they would pronounce it, but he arrives from 20 million from Corinthians. He's not impressed too much down there, but high hopes for him in the Super League to see what he can deliver. Obviously, he starts instead of Van Nistelrooy. Surprise for you that Kieran wants to try something else. Van Nistelrooy, not really. I mean, he's always someone that we're talking about as not. But I mean, 13 goals in 26. It's not as if he's bad. Van Nistelrooy.
No, but then made you always expect more. I mean, again, just from my experience, if we go back to what we spoke about earlier, I was happy to swap him for Eto'o in the first incarnation, and Eto'o outscored him every year.
Mm,
You could say, yes, 13 is a decent return out of 26, that's 1 in 2.
mm-hmm,
But when you've got players scoring 20, 25, nearly 30 goals in those 26 games,
mm,
and when you see statistically how good Van Nistelrooy is, he should be doing a lot more. But it's interesting, Churchtown, do they need more firepower? Olasedabi, as I said, it was my tip for Golden Boot. Larson is a player I've had before, again in the first incarnation, in the first 2-3 years,
mm.
is superb. Robin and Ferguson, as we've spoken about at length, and Davids as well. That spine just dominates midfielders. Um, it'll be interesting, to see how the new boy fits in. Again, if I may just take a moment for a little bit of self-indulgence. When I'm putting the blog together, if I don't know who's seen it and who hasn't, but can you imagine how I'm having to react when I'm getting these new videos that I can put in the blogs now, and I'm getting one come through of Ian at Midlothian, as I mentioned in a tweet earlier, looking like a serial killer with his mask and everything on, and then I'm getting a half naked Kieran in the next video, and
Yeah, yeah.
thankfully no one else is. I'm having to explain why I'm getting all these weird videos from them.
Yeah, well, I mean, it's definitely interesting. I mean, I like the mix of the text and the videos as well, and I think for the managers that do want to put in the videos, that I think it's great. I think it's fun. I think it's something that people are likely to engage with. Maybe not more than actually reading it. I personally prefer to read it. I could do without I could do with the videos just going up as tweets or whatever. But I think it makes the blog different. It appeals to a broad audience and it's more fun. And it also brings out some of the great personalities that we have in the Super League. So I'm fully in favor of it. I see a bunch of predictions coming in, mainly involving a shit ton of goals. From your perspective, Stephen, goals in this one, I guess.
You know what was interesting in this one? This was split straight down the middle in the vote. It was 50-50. No one had even predicted a draw. I'm going to say, and I'm sorry to say it because I really like Ardsley as a team and as a manager. I think Churchtown will win, and I think it will be a high scoring game. I'm going to say 5-2.
5-2. Yeah, I mean, Arsenal didn't even get a goal against Churchtown in the two games they had last year. It was 3-0 Churchtown, both of them. So if they can get a goal, then they'll have outperformed themselves from last year. And obviously, judging on their performances so far this season, that's looking very much likely. Let's fire this one up and see if we can get the action that everyone's been predicting.
Guaranteed 0-0.
Guaranteed 0-0. Guaranteed early goal for Tomadera. And Nikiforenko
There's your
picks
red
up
card.
picks up a red. So we'll see how that goes with the three strikers up top there. Let's see. I mean, where is it there?
There's only 2 minutes. He possibly have done in 2 minutes.
Yeah, that's 2 minutes. There's a
He's
goal and a red card. I'm kind of thinking that I will put Recoba down here and go with two up top, just because he's leading with one
yeah,
goal. I'll make it slightly more defensive. Let's have a look. Oh, we
I would
can't see
agree.
that yet, obviously. Yeah, so very event. I mean, I know we're in the second minute and in the third minute. So, but anyway, we'll we'll kick this one off. There should be more goals in this one. You would presume after that start. Let's have a look. It's I mean, Ardsley is still making a push for it, definitely. They are trying to get back in Churchtown, obviously, but I think still the fitness is not an issue yet. So they could. My goodness, Ardsley are definitely pushing forward. Yeah, the better team in
This
the
is what.
first half. Everton. Oh, it was Everton
Wow.
who drew the red card from Nikiforenko. Ran straight past him. Tomadera headed the ball, so it was Nikiforenko got an assist, and then got sent off all in 180 seconds. So well done him. Let's have a look at Arsley stats.
Incredible.
I mean, solid. That's kind of all I can
You
say to
can't.
that, really. Are you still there, Stephen?
So I was just saying, you can't complain with that performance. Statistically, they were better. We were saying during the action, even with 10 men, they're pushing forward. This is going to be a test for Churchtown. I'm very impressed. Ardsley have done well that half.
They definitely have. Churchtown. Yeah, that's not been vintage Churchtown performance. I mean, especially considering how good they were away from home in the league last year. So that's Edgar Davids obviously getting the ball quite a lot and not doing a whole lot with it. New boy Everson not really doing a lot apart from getting a penalty against him. But Ole Sedebe and Henrik Larsson doing even less. They've not even. I mean, they've not even had a shot on. It's Tudor who had a shot from somewhere and they didn't hit the target. So it'll be interesting to see if fitness plays into it in the second half. They're still in the 90s, so it doesn't look as if.
Yeah. So
But
I was just going to say that the interesting thing there for me, and everyone knows what a fan of his I am, is how poorly or what lack of influence Barry Ferguson's having, considering there's nobody near him in midfield.
yeah, he should have plenty of time to run about and do his thing. Tomadera only getting a 7 with 100% pass completion and 2 shots both on target. Yeah, but he did lose a tackle, so And I think it's also maybe a percentage of the whole team contribution. Patrick Vieira doing Patrick Vieira things. Um, Good news for him. And he's going to have to keep that up in the second half. Do you think Churchtown can come back in this one, Stephen? I mean, 1 goal so far. That's not what we were waiting for or hoping for.
I mean, the thing is, Churchtown are the top scorers in the league at the minute, so you wouldn't put anything past them. They've got a man advantage, so you wouldn't put it past them. But we all know that Champ is capable of offering up weird and wonderful things. So if they perform like they did if both teams perform like they did in the first half, then Ardsley could go on and win this 2-0.
Well, we'll kick off the second half. They do have a history of this. Do you remember they were down to 9 men and they still managed to beat BTEC last year. So we'll see what happens in the second half. They obviously need to prevent to prevent Churchtown from getting an early goal, and it does look as if they're trying very hard, um, but they're still creating chances. Those strikers for Ardsley are really doing a massive job running and keep putting the pressure on, and the wingers from Ardsley as well are kind of having a. And there's Tomadera with the second for Ardsley, down to 10 men against the league leaders. It was always going to be like that, wasn't it?
As a man who's interested in symmetry and different quirks of the game, I've got a question for you at full time if it stays like this.
Yeah, let's get Christian Kibu off for. Is he the better one of these? Does he? Yeah, we'll put him in. That's fine. Right, let's see how that goes. I mean, and there's Morientes with a third.
I know who's getting. I think I know who's getting manager of the week this week.
I mean, they pulled Tudor pulled one back in the end, but that's a disaster for Churchtown, and a fantastic performance from Ardsley Celtic and their keeper especially probably saving 5 out of 6 shots, but 13 shots from Ardsley with being a man down. I mean, it was almost as if it didn't really matter for them.
That's incredible. That is a brilliant performance. That cannot be underplayed. Just how good that is from Ardsley.
I mean, that was and the wingers definitely. I mean, and we spoke about it earlier when we were talking about hooligans. We were talking about Valent. That is the danger with a narrow formation. If the wingers are on top form, then you're struggling. You are struggling because you have Candela and Sauri getting 9 and 10, and probably arguably, I mean, apart from Tomadera maybe being the kind of best or most influential players on the pitch, John Terry of all people getting an assist for some obscure reason. I'm not entirely sure how that happened, but a very very good
That's an
good display.
That assist for Terry's an accident.
And yeah, the only player that perhaps didn't really live up to expectation was Recoba, who was rewarded with a with a place in the starting 11 after his 2 goals last week. And I mean, 2 key passes is okay, I guess, but nothing to really impress. And Patrick Vieira doing a lot of tackling, John Terry as well. So very strong from them. Churchtown massive. don't know. I don't know what happened there for them really. I mean, not a great day for Maldini
Oh,
and Thuram. They were struggling up against the the Ardsley strikers, obviously, and Oliver Kahn having a bit of a shit day as well, which he had one, a first game of the season, he had one as well for some reason, after being very, very solid last year, 7 and 8s all the way through, but that's another little bit of a chink in his armor. Um, Anything else for the analysis for Churchtown's performance?
well, yeah, it just the question I was alluding to, and I know it's a strange one to bring it up with Churchtown, who have been so successful with it. But you very open about the fact when people play three centre backs, you think the middle one always struggles. Now Van Nistelrooy has been dropped, who's normally the middle of the three forwards, and the new guys come in the middle of the three forwards hasn't really impressed. Do you think it's the same with the strikers?
I've never played with three strikers, and I never will, so I don't have an opinion on it. I can't see it working, to be honest. That's just my personal preference. I think you get much more out. I mean, obviously, I'm frequently been been proven wrong. I just don't think you get the same out of it, out of three strikers, as you do with two strikers and an AMC, or two AMC and um, a striker. Those combinations just in historically it's just worked better for me. I have tried a lot of different things, but three strikers, three central strikers would I don't know. I have no idea.
But no, I'll just finish that by saying superb performance from Ardsley and huge congratulations.
Yeah, absolutely. And Henrik Larsson, I mean, they're obviously queuing up to be replaced by Van Nistelrooy, the three guys. Everton, apart from drawing the red from Nikiforenko, didn't really do a lot. Henrik Larsson did absolutely nothing, and Oli Sadebe had was probably the better of the three with the two shots. So yeah, tricky one. Yeah, we'll see. We'll see what happened next week. A very impressive display from Ardsley Celtic, and they're obviously looking towards the playoffs as well, as they were perhaps argued that they should have been last season as well, with the squad at their disposal. They'll be without Nikiforenko, as we all know. In this league, it's only one game regardless, so that's just one game they'll be without him, and we'll see how long he was out for. But I think he had 63 fitness, so it's probably not for that long. But we'll pick that one up in the packs going out to the managers. Obviously, you can have a look at that. Next up, we've got Midlothian Football Club against the Somerset Sloths. And let's go. Yeah. And for all of those, the race people, there, here's a familiar face from most of you. He's on the bench tonight for Sloth, so we might see him in action later. Midlothian, same formation as last week, and I think one or two changes. Novotny out, the keepers changed as well. What do you make of this Midlothian formation? Similar to the Valiant formation, but perhaps with a little bit less success so far.
He changed it. It was only sort of debuted last week, I think, and they obviously had that crazy win. So if that's correct and it's one win out of one, you can't really argue. I think Back has played better when he's in the AMC role as opposed to up front, which is slightly surprising. I think on paper they've got a very good team. I'm a big fan of Gattuso, big fan of Hoffland, and obviously Mpenza. If you can get him firing, teams are in trouble.
Mm, It'll be interesting, definitely, to see how the players perform in this, just because it is so similar to the Valiant formation, and we see if Dulaj and Ramalov, they're obviously being directly compared to to Lisa Rasoon Cafu, which is perhaps a little bit unfair, but he had good performances last game. It was obviously crazy 10 minutes conceding those three goals, but apart from that, it was a strong performance from them with this formation. Sloss have changed it up.
Just I'm just slightly gutted for Eric Addo, who was probably for a large part Midlothian's best player last year, and now he can't get in the team.
Yeah, he does seem to struggle, but he really likes he really likes Gattuso, and what's the other chap called? Liverpool person, Steven Gerrard, and Carsten Ramalov was his highest average in player last season, so it's difficult to drop any of them, and he obviously also has Neil Scally to that he can bring in. Uh, and we all love Neil Scally. Well, some of us anyway. Somerset Sloths. So Rob has completely changed it up. He normally plays with much heavier focus on the front end of the pitch, and he hasn't scored, so he's gone more defensive. Does that make sense? or is it, does he just need a little bit more of a stable formation? I mean, this is like kind of BTEC-y, isn't it? This BTEC, this is the same
It's
formation as Ian
balanced.
plays.
I think that what I would call it is balanced. What you would say is everyone is in their proper position.
Mm,
I think Rivaldo was very hit and miss, but I think he did have a couple of exceptional games last year from an AMC role. I know Donovan did well for him back end of last year.
mm-hmm,
Crespo, we all know, is capable of being a top scorer if he gets it right. Those two holding midfielders are perfectly capable of consistent 8 out of 10 games. Undai as well is a player with proven Super League capabilities. And the goalkeeper, he was unlucky last week. So I quite like this.
mm-hmm. Yeah,
Um,
it'd
as,
be,
as, as far as tactics go, this is very good.
yeah, it's definitely different to what we've seen from Sloths in the past. Will it be enough for them to get a goal? I think that's a big question against Midlothian. Your prediction on that, Stephen?
Well, in the vote, Midlothian got 57%, Sloths got 33%. I'm going to say Sloths will score, but sadly, I still think they will lose.
There's a couple of
I'm going to
draws.
go.
A couple of draws being mentioned in the comments. Alf going with a draw, Ian going with a draw as well. Ian Edwards, not Ian. I still can't pronounce those two names differently. I don't know if they are, but either way, Mr. Edwards is going with 1-1 as well. I'm quite excited to see how this one will go. Some interesting players on display for both sides. I like a lot of the Midlothian players. I like the new Sloth tactic, so this could be interesting. I'm hoping it'll live up to my high expectations anyway. We'll kick this one off and we'll see who gets off to the better start. If there's an own goal for Van Bronckhorst. That's not gonna help. And there's back with his first of the season. Yeah, good start for Midlothian. Not such a good start for Sloths, and doesn't look promising.
I don't know. We're seeing a bit more white now.
Yeah, I was gonna say it does look as if it's turned around a little bit, but not many chances created. I think not many shots. Oh, just a yellow.
It looks like Midlothian are getting a lot of set pieces.
Yeah, it looks like that as well. It looks a lot like a lot of free kicks committed. Let's have a quick look here. No, it's not. Okay, fair enough. Completely misread that. But anyway, they had two. But either way, very strong Midlothian performance. A little bit lucky perhaps to get. Let's see what happened with that Frank Bronckhorst own goal. The ball hit Van Bronckhorst. That's just how it goes sometimes. And back with a goal for them. So yeah, Klumpen not doing particularly well, but apart from that, everyone else doing a decent job in the first half for Midlothian.
Yes, but there's something I've spotted, and I'm just going to make the call on behalf of my fellow bottom of the table struggler. I'm going to claim conspiracy here because I've just spotted the referee's name, and there's absolutely no way he is Australian.
No, it does look as if the Scots have brought
Tell me
have brought their own referee to the table here. That's a good point, actually. Let's see who he's handed out yellow cards to: Christian Burns and NDI. So the two central defenders are definitely struggling for Sloths. And apart from that, it's also not looking good for. Well, it's not really looking good for any of them.
No, the keeper's playing well again, considering he's conceded two. This tactic, in theory, would work for them because, as we said, that they've got talented players in the right places. I'm not sure if it's Midlothian have done a job on them, or if he's just not got a few instructions, whether it's individually or team correct. There were signs, towards the back end of that half that we were seeing a bit more white. I hope that he gets something out of this, not necessarily the result, but just something that says, if I stick with this, we could make it work.
So a goal for Sloth in the second half wouldn't go amiss, but we'll see. It's been pretty impressive for Midlothian early on. So let's kick off the second half and see what that will bring. Early pressure from Midlothian again, close to getting a third a couple of times there, I think. Rivaldo now taking things into his own hands for Sloths.
if we see a penalty and a red card to Midlothian, then then Rob will definitely be claiming fix because he was already calling out the officials in the blog this week.
Yeah, well, it's not helped tonight. He's not been helped by the referees tonight, I don't think. And I mean,
Coming back at them.
yeah, they're creating more chances. They are coming back at them, but they're not opening their account scoring wise. And when we say coming back at them, I don't think they really did, to be honest. Yeah, Midlothian with a very impressive, solid 2-0 victory. Perhaps a little bit disappointing that they didn't score more. That's going to be a 10 down here, isn't it? He gets an 8. Okay, thank you very much, Championship Manager, for being absolutely dog shit at handing out ratings, but never mind.
Again, this is why I make the point that you shouldn't just focus on ratings, because the keepers clearly had a very good game there. But when it comes to picking team of the week, they'll say, no, you got an 8.
Well, we'll see. I personally think that if Day is not the goalkeeper in the team of the week when he saves 10 shots, then it's tricky to then it's going to be tricky to be selected as keeper of the week. I know Buffon did a great job for Ian in that BTEC game as well, but still. Anyway, a back getting a man of the match and award and a goal, that's a positive for him, but not a huge. If there's anything you could maybe criticize him for a little bit, there's not gigantic amounts of creativity. I mean, they should have perhaps gotten better chances instead of so many chances. You can maybe argue that's part of it as well.
Yeah, but the thing is, Vieri's a bit like Van Nistelrooy, isn't he? Where he will come up and score 2 after not scoring for 5 games. He's one of them players that gets a run going. Mpenza, he's not been the Mpenza that we saw at Halle in the first incarnation. We know what he's capable of, but he's not got there yet.
Mm-hmm.
And you say about creativity, there's a lot of defensive midfield players there. Perhaps, and I don't mean this disrespectfully to the Sloths, but when you're against the Sloths, you can afford to play 1 or 2 extra attacking midfielders.
Yeah, that
because,
is true.
You know, that they've played what's that there? Let me just count up quickly. 1, 2, 3, 4. Is that 4, possibly 5 defensive midfielders and 2 centre backs against Sloths who had 2 shots on goal.
Yeah. But you know, they're looking for that kind of balance, that mix at Midlothian, because they have they struggled in the first couple of games. I don't think they want to go all out attack. I think they want to make sure they don't concede. I mean, they had such a good formation. I can't even remember what it looked like. It was kind of Palmer-esque, wasn't it? Their formation. It was like the Iron Brew Fortress for the first I don't know how many home games of the season last year. So I think they're maybe just trying not to go too gung ho. And I mean, 2-0 and a very solid win there for them. It's also difficult to argue with, but I do get your point. Sloths, on the other hand, I mean, I was hopeful with this formation that might have turned things around a little bit. It doesn't look as if it has really worked. What I will say for the manager is that individual player instructions. There are things that maybe could be addressed if you wanted to get a little bit more out of the formation. I don't think the formation as such is bad, but there's a couple of things that maybe could be looked at. But I'll leave that in his capable hands. Obviously, he does have some strong players in there. You can see that Christian Burns has a good performance. The wing backs were not doing particularly well, but there are some decent players in there, and they will get the goals eventually as well. Any observations on the Sloths? Anything that you think they should do to improve? Stick with a formation with a number of defensive players, or try to go back to being more attacking, or just play players in their formations and in their right positions, and results will come.
Well, again, you're comparing to other teams, but we've seen that getting this sort of balance is working for other teams. As you've said, there are a couple of players you could pick out there, like the goalkeeper, that have played well. You know, Crespo will score you goals. So it's just getting the balance right. And again, I'm not privy to what goes on at Sloths, but if more likely tweaking the player instructions than wholesale changes tactically is what he needs to turn this around.
It'll be interesting to see what he comes up with next week. We'll obviously have a quick look at the fixtures after the last game of the evening, which features Astor Athletic at home to the Swindon Devils. Let me just double check. I have that right, don't I?
Yeah.
Okay, perfect. Right. So if we look at Astra Athletic first, so Astra have gone with their normal formation. The mystery man is Vitaly Kutisov. If Alf hasn't revealed that already, then I can reveal it now. So we'll be looking forward to seeing him in action. He's got Rui Costa and Brugging, so that's two pretty strong central attacking midfielders. Lee Boyer, obviously, yet to hit the form that he had early on last season, but a very strong player in the league. And a whole new central defense and a new goalkeeper. So he swapped all three at the back from last week when he had that 3-0 defeat at Hornets. And as mentioned, Kutuzov comes in up top. Anything to worry you there?
I mean, the three changes at the back make them better, so that makes our job harder. Vogel, we all know how good he can be in the DMC role. Bowyer, as was spoken about in the blog, hasn't had the impact yet that he had. Bruges being back in the AMC role is a player that I like a lot, gone on record as saying I like a lot. He's going to be dangerous. Interesting to see what Kutsov does up front. We know Smith on home saves is better than he is on Super League so far. He's still young. In a way, I'm kind of glad Alf stuck to his tactics because that's what I was kind of basing mine on, how best to beat it.
Mm-hmm.
I was concerned that he may have changed it slightly. But that's not to say, obviously, I've got it right. Like I said about Valorant, what I've done now, I could go and get absolutely destroyed. Alf, as I said in the blog, is probably the most respected manager in the league. Alf is a great. I wish there was a TV program where he'd be like Attenborough-esque with got such a good broadcasting voice. You know, I listen to him on Boyce's charity stream, and I could listen to his stories all day. But I'm looking at that. He's got talent, particularly in the defensive areas. But I remain hopeful that we could get a result.
Yeah, and let's see what you've done to get a result. Some mixed comments, as you could probably imagine, from from the rafters, from the crowd. Chris Mack wants to know if you're playing long ball. Ryan says that Swindon formation, laughing face. What else is there? Ian says home banker. And Neil says, what is that formation, Fifey? Looks like an 8-year-old scribbled it. So, yeah, there's there's not a lot of love for the 3-3-1-3 formation, but there must be kind of a logic to it that you've set up in this way to combat Alf's formation. If you said that that's the
Yes,
one
so,
you thought he was going with.
yeah. So this is where I feel very harshly treated the first couple of weeks on here. I got slated the first week for my shithousey tactics of zero up front, but no one took into account that two of my best strikers were injured. We won that game, and I still got slated. I then tweaked it for BTEC, went with a more conventional formation. We drew the game, but we weren't very good. I did a very good job against BTEC. We're very, very unlucky to lose. Sorry, BTEC Bolton last week. Very, very unlucky to lose with one up front. And so I thought, you know what? I'll go three up front then. They all want me to play strikers. They can't complain if I go three up front. I've put Seedorf in the middle there because he's been more consistently good than Zidane. And I thought he can go one-on-one with Bowyer and I would back him to win. Those four centrally defensive, I think, are capable of doing the job I need them to do against Alf's four in attack. And then, as I've pointed out in other games, I've opted to go with two people out wide to try and utilise the space that's there.
Yeah, well, that definitely worked for Hodgie against Churchtown earlier this evening, playing the wide men against the narrow formation. So we'll see what happens in this one. I mean, three up front also works for Hodgie. So yeah, it's got the hallmarks of something that could work, but of course it is a little bit it does look a little bit unusual, so it is going to attract some attention. Lethal attack, but can you get the ball to them? Wide men a danger, says Alf. So I mean, there are people who are supporting it, but they're perhaps questioning whether you can get the ball to the three up front. But we'll see. We'll see. I mean, Cole and Ebiede should be able to provide some crosses into that front three, and yeah, it'll be interesting. It'll be interesting. I'm not going to ask for your prediction because you should believe in a win, obviously. Alf is usually quick off the mark with a prediction here. I don't know if anyone else wants to chip in. Ryan says 6-0 for Astor, predictably.
Possibly.
I don't think anyone's Scott as a home win for him as well. I mean, let's see. We'll kick the game off and we'll see
I
how
think
it
I
goes.
said 4-2 in the pre-match thing that went out on Twitter. I think I said we'd win 4-2.
Well, I think there's definitely going to be goals at both ends in this one. If the Hodges game against Kieran is anything to go by, so I'm going to kick this one off and we'll see how it goes and we'll see who gets on the score sheet first. If Kutusov will do something, if oh, there was an appeal for penalty there that was turned down. Kalushny,
Good start for that.
Kutusov, Smith. Kluivert could have perhaps done a little bit better there. Had a couple of chances there, but Lehman is back in goal and obviously doing a brilliant job. Chances at both ends. Ooh. Seat off. And there's Filippo Inzaghi with his first goal for Swindon Devils. Oof! And there's Rui Costa pulling one straight back from Astor Athletic. Oh, yeah. Proper championship manager first half there. Plenty of chances at either end, and you're thinking, oh, who's going to get the first goal? And as soon as you get it, the the opposition equalizes. You've done better than Astor in the first half, I think, based on those stats. What do you think?
I think Astor started very strongly. I think we came into it from about 20, 25 minutes. We looked reasonably good. I thought it might end 0-0. I was obviously delighted to take the lead, but it's criminal to concede. You know, the age-old thing is once you've scored, give it 5 minutes, and we didn't. So we've got now nothing to show for it going into the second half.
I mean, still a draw away from home, 1-1 is definitely not a terrible result. And I think apart from Ehiok, I think everyone else is. Oh no, there's Simone Inzaghi only getting a 6, but 7 and 8 for the rest of the boys. Perhaps a little bit of a shame to concede on just the one shot from Astor. I think so that's not perfect. Over at Astor, we've got Johan Vogel getting a 9, Kalusny getting an 8, and everyone else getting 6s and 7s. Not a great start for Vitaly Kutusov. Some very very poor passing from Brooking and Kutusov there, completing 50% or less of their passes. So I'm not sure what Alf's going to make of that, but they're not exactly lining themselves up for being selected again next week with that kind of a return on investment. Yeah, I mean, there's a lot of offside. There's not even offsides. That's just a lot of free kicks. Okay, and yellow cards, have they been abundant? Yeah, 3 for Asta already. You've not had any. We could maybe see Mark Giuliano as one of the defenders. Could we see a red card in the second half? That would obviously help Swindon along if that was the case. Let's have a look at the comments here. Set up nicely for the second half. So far, so good. Fifey, says Ian Campbell in Edinburgh. Ian Edwards says really good half from Swindon. Steve looks favourite, says Alf. Yeah, so you've definitely got some backers and your
And Alf
detractors.
looks
Ryan has been quiet since he changed his prediction from 6-0 to 5-1.
he
But
just
let
hates Swindon.
they're going to have to come up with the goods in the second half after if they're going to get 5. But we'll kick this one off and not keep you waiting for any longer. The suspense is obviously. Oh, and that was Kutusov with the first action of the second half, and that's a goal for Astor Athletic. It looks as if they're a little bit better the first 10-15 so far. Swindon now definitely coming back into it. Simone Inzaghi with a chance. Ebiede creating as well. Again, Lehman couldn't hold on to it, but somehow they scramble it away. Montero clears it forward. Seedorf trying his best to get it up there. Kluivert not really picking up the ball. Kutuzov again. Kutuzov to Smith, and now it's 3-1. They've been a lot more clinical in the second half, Astor, when it comes to putting away the chances. Just struggling to get that quality of the chances in the at the front end, Swindon, and unfortunately it finishes 3-1. Commentator's curse continues. Something happened to the offsides in the second half. 18 offsides, 28 free kicks in total. Johan Fogel, man of the match, getting a 10, sealing up the defense in the second half. Strong performance from Astor in the second half. They're getting the assist from the defensive midfielders.
Yeah, I mean, congratulations, Alf. It was a very, very good second half performance. Vogel obviously cut off the supply to our three strikers, and yeah, very, very ruthlessly efficient in that second half. So, we tried, which is something a lot of managers would be too scared to do. We tried something different, and it looked like it might work, but we were just too slow to start in both halves, and it's come back to bite us on the proverbial rear end, unfortunately.
Yeah, a bit of a shame, much like it happened to Chutley in the second half. That early goal in just after the break really kind of killed the morale a little bit. Ebieta did really well, so the wing backs actually worked really, really well. Filippo Inzaghi with 3 shots. I mean, as mentioned previously, I don't like the 3 strikers. I don't think I don't think it makes any sense, but it's obviously it works in some cases, and Kieran has great success with it as well. Is there room for Ronaldo or Zidane in attacking midfield? I'll leave that up to you for you to decide in for next week's game. Overall, I think I mean the first half performance were obviously better for Swindon. A couple of good performances in the second half. Nice to see the fullbacks working so well. If you're going to continue with that, that's obviously positive. And Filippo Inzaghi obviously getting a goal is nice. A little bit disappointed with Kluivert actually. I saw a lot of his name, but not a lot of him actually scoring. He had a lot of touches, but not a lot of output. The same for Simone Inzaghi, not really getting any output. So a shame with regards to that. And Asta back to winning ways after perhaps being a little bit unlucky to lose with 3 goals away to Hoddesdon last week. Final thoughts on this one. Back to the drawing board, I guess. We'll have a look at next week's fixtures. Any positives to take from this, apart from the fullbacks' performances?
Yeah, like say, it's just about we tried something. We weren't scared to try it. It worked for a period, so we'll try and work out which bits worked, which bits didn't. I wouldn't be averse to going 3 up top against other teams again. Yeah, I mean, Ebieta and Cole have played the last 2 or 3 together now and have both been very good. So they seem to be building up a partnership. Kluivert, I'm a bit worried that he's not scored in the first 4, but like you say, we've got Ronaldo, we've got Zidane, who we've had bids for in the last couple of weeks. I keep having to turn down bids. Costanzo's been decent. Montero and Mendes have been decent. So, that's up to now. We'd only conceded 2, so we've now conceded 5 and 4. Which, when you look at people like Dragons conceding 107 or whatever it is they've conceded, we've clearly showed off Astra the first team to properly beat us this season. So, yeah, plenty of positives to build on.
Yeah, and let's have a look at that mystery man, Kutuzov. I mean, I was not particularly complimentary about him at halftime, but he certainly upped his game in the second half. As Al pointed out there,
Yeah.
20 finishing. He's a solid player for him, and yeah, and if he can get that striking partnership to work, that was one of the things that he did have in the first 7 games or whatever last season when Aston were doing so well, was that he had a working striking partnership. Nicolau and Smith were both scoring goals at that time, and he hasn't had that since. So for him to see Smith and Kutuzov both scoring and Rui Costa chipping in as well, that's got to be positive from Alf's perspective. Let's have a look at the league table and see where that leaves us. It leaves us in the situation that we have Ballon United going back to the top of the table. They've conceded 2 goals and scored 11, so yeah, they're the most scoring and the best defensive team in the league. shared with Ardsley for scoring goals, but for conceding, Ardsley nowhere near that. Then we've got Panathinaikos with 3 wins. So as you mentioned, a very impressive start that Chris Mack has made as Panathinaikos manager. Churchtown, Ardsley, BTEC, and Bolton make up the rest of the top 6 after some decent results for those chaps. If you're looking down at the below the line, so Astra have started to come back into it after that perhaps slightly unfortunate away loss last week. They had a strong performance tonight. Hooligans with 2 wins and 2 draws, plenty of goals either end. Midlothian starting to come back after a poor start to the season as well, albeit against difficult opposition. I think there was Bolton and Valen in the first 2. Then we've got Hornets, a bit of a mixed bag for them, not particularly great tonight. Yourself, as you mentioned, strong defensive record. You just need to up the goal scoring a little bit, and that'll obviously be very helpful for you in your pursuit for a higher league position. Churchill Cannons down at the bottom. They've had a difficult start to the season. Sloths somehow not last despite not having scored a goal. That's a little bit unfortunate for Dragons, who are really rooted at the bottom with that appalling defensive record. Any of the teams so far that have shocked you or surprised you in a positive or negative way?
I'm surprised to a point that Bolton are still in the top 6. As I've said, I'm not very complimentary of what they've achieved thus far. We're only 4 games in, so it's hard to say. But no, and Dragons simply, if you're bottom of the league and there is someone who hasn't scored a goal, you're doing very badly. But again, it's only 4 games. I've been there myself many a time. It's too early to say anything. As we've alluded to, great start from Panathinaikos, Churchtown up there, Valen just going about their business quietly. Nice to see a couple of teams are being entertainers, the likes of Ardsley and Chudley. But yeah, it's still early days. No one will be panicking yet, and a lot to play for in 22 remaining fixtures.
Yeah, absolutely. I would say if from a chairman's perspective, I was going to put anything out. I mean, to see Ardsley Celtic up there after the last half, the second half of the season they had, which was appalling last year. To be fair, no disrespect to Archie, but that was shocking. The second half of the season that they had, and obviously they did not finish very well in the league at all. To see them to come back with the transfer that they've made, especially interesting to see that they've actually made a bunch of transfers to Panathinaikos who are also doing well. So that's turned around pretty well for them, and obviously Ardsley having a very impressive result so far. So, and BTEC going well as well. BTEC unbeaten. BTEC and Valen, the 2 only unbeaten sides that are left in the league. So interesting to see that. Let's have a look at next week's fixtures. You have a trip to Hornets. 10th against 11th. Craig not off to the best start of the season. I presume you, with your constant development of the squad and the players that you have at your disposal now, you'll be looking at that and thinking you could relatively well be expected to get something here away at Hornets. Would you agree with that?
It would be very similar to tonight, where I'll look at it and think that I'm up against a very talented opposite number who knows what he's doing and has players there who can do the damage. But yes, I'll be going into it looking to and expecting to win.
A bunch of interesting games I've just noticed. Actually, first up, I don't know what order they'll come in, obviously, yet to decide that. But Ardsley Celtic free scoring and winning with 10 men. Ardsley against the unbeaten BTEC side. Should be a cracker of a game as well. 4th against 5th there. Your favorite for that one? Too early to say. Will the Ardsley attacking machine be too much for BTEC, or do you think they can withstand the storm?
Do you know what? I'm looking at it. Every game there could be really, really good.
Yeah.
I'm struggling to pick out a standout fixture, to be fair. I think BTEC's unbeaten run is under threat, but they're more than capable of keeping it. As we said, Ardsley are capable of conceding just as many as they are scoring. You go below that, it's the same with Chudley and Midlothian. That's literally on a knife edge. Palmer away at Chudley, sorry. Churchtown, I should say. Read it right. Top of the table clash, can't argue with that. Hooligans Astor, Two of the
That
great characters of the league,
That's always a
both
good one.
scoring
The
goals
two
and
the two
winning
super
games.
the two super narrows against each other. The hooligans with Asta. That's always I think one that catches the eye. Sloths, can they get the first goal? They're playing Phoenix at home, so with
They could get
with the keeper performances that Bolton have been putting up so far, I'd be surprised if Sloths didn't get a goal. To be honest.
first goal and first point or points of the season now, I would imagine. And I'm sure Boise will get involved and push Jamie to one side in a bid to prove how good he is against the current league leaders as well.
Yeah. Do you think? I mean, I'd have to stay impartial based on the performances so far this season. Whether Dragons can limit Valen to 4 is probably going to be more the question of whether Valen can score 4 against Dragon Destroyers as everyone else had. But you know, there's a big drawing board in front of Jamie, and him and Boise can obviously do what they need to do. But this is it's going to be a tricky one if they want to stop the rot next week. Then they're going to have to come up with something a little bit special, I think, based on how the season has been going so far. So a very difficult game first. I mean, it's always going to be difficult, isn't it? Bottom of the table against the league leaders. The bottom of the table team are away, but definitely a potential huge talking point in all of the games. Um, and I think that's pretty much it. We can maybe have a quick look before we go at the average rating chart. So Candela, perhaps a little bit surprisingly, has had two very good games, an 8 and a 10. Johan Vogel, who was at BTEC last season and was probably one of the worst players in the league. That's a bit harsh. I think he had worse players. Maybe, I don't know, 664. It's quite bad. He's up there with a 9 and a goal and 2 assists. Shevchenko is up there as well, and obviously Saviola with 2 games, 3 goals and 2 assists. It's a little bit early for any of this to make a huge amount of sense. Goal scorer chart: Shevchenko, Brosek, Tomadera, Pizarro, Kennedy has got 3. And if we look at the assists, then Tomadera, yeah, I mean, he's having a pretty decent start to the season. But as you mentioned, Sadov is not having he's having a pretty good start to you, and you kind of needed a player in that role. So yeah, it's working out pretty okay for everyone, I guess. Um, Pick of the bunch from you, match of the day for next week. Your prediction, Stephen, for this one.
Um, Hooligans Aster.
Hooligans Aster, we're going to go with. I'm not going to extend the question to the comments because I can see that we've been doing this for 2 hours and 10 minutes already. So I'm going to leave it at that. Thank.
Just
Mhm,
before you finish, if I may,
mhm.
I don't know if he's watching or whatever, but I just wanted to congratulate Boise on his charity night,
Ooh, of course, yeah.
his charity stream 24-hour challenge to raise over £1,000 playing champ is an incredible effort. It was really enjoyable. I watched loads of it. Some of the guests he had on, whether it be Alf or Neil Tarrant or his mate Dougie, who was on late times. It was superbly funny throughout and a great watch. I really enjoyed it.
Yeah, it was absolutely brilliant. Big shout out to Boise obviously for doing that. I think the last I heard that was you who mentioned he was what 1300 or something like that pounds he'd already raised. I don't know if he was still counting the donations or if he's sleeping or whatever. I caught up with it throughout the day, and it was, as you mentioned, it was brilliant, the guest that he'd had lined up for it. Especially I think I woke up around 3 o'clock in the morning and I put it on, and they were still arguing about, I can't remember what it was, but it was uh, it was vintage Boise performance. So I hope everyone had a chance to join in, and obviously if you've got the spare cash, then throw a couple of quid Boise's way for the NHS charity donation if you haven't done so already. So very well done to the former chairman and current Dragons assistant manager for his charity efforts. 24 hours is no. I mean, I lose my voice after 2. I don't know if I could contemplate such a performance, but it was great fun. It was great fun, and obviously for a brilliant cause. So well done, Boise, for that. Um, Thanks very much, Stephen, and thanks for reminding me of that. I'd actually completely for my pre-match kind of preparation kind of went out the window. So apologies again to Ian up in Scotland for not getting him on co-coms. He would have enjoyed that tonight, I'm sure. But we'll have him on very very soon, I'm sure, once we get the technical issues sorted out. So thank you very much, Fifey, for your contribution. Thank you for the work on the blog. It's brilliant. The videos are great. Really enjoying that, and I'm looking forward to Team of the Week. To be honest, I like a bit of a controversial or different Team of the Week instead of the the kind of sort of predictable selections, because we can get them from the game. Then there would be no point in you guys doing it if we just picked whoever had the best rating in each position. So you're absolutely right to throw players in the way that you want them to. So thanks very much for that.
No, thank you for having me on. Cheers, guys. Thanks for watching, and I'll no doubt speak to you all very soon, and hopefully I'll be on here probably 4 weeks time or whatever.
Yes, well, you are booked in for the first Monday of the month, first Sunday of the month rather. So we can keep that up, obviously. Thanks very much, Stephen, and thanks very much for everyone for watching. I hope you enjoyed the show, and I will catch you again next Sunday. Good night, everyone.
See ya.